So, have you ever hit that point in the day where you feel like you're just totally running on fumes? Like you wish you could just plug yourself in somewhere and recharge?
Oh, definitely. It's a
Yeah.
super common feeling, I think. And the statistics, well, they really back that up. Something like 2/3 of adults in, developed nations aren't getting the recommended 8 hours.
2/3. That's huge. It just shows how widespread this whole thing is.
Yeah, and it really goes way beyond just feeling a bit tired the next day, which is why today we're doing this deep dive into Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep. We're using bits from the audiobook to really get into this fundamental part of our lives.
Exactly. And our mission here, for you listening, isn't just about, feeling groggy together. We want to understand why. Why do we actually need sleep on such a deep level? What are the consequences, sometimes really shocking ones, when we consistently miss out?
Right. It's not just feeling a bit off. There are serious health implications.
And the audiobook really lays it out, doesn't it? Just packed with research showing how essential sleep is for mind and body.
It really is.
Okay, let's dive in then. What really jumped out at me straight away was just the sheer number of things that go wrong when we don't sleep enough. It's like this domino effect almost.
That's quite sobering, yeah. Walker points out, for instance, that routinely sleeping less than, say, 6 or 7 hours a night more than doubles your risk of cancer.
Doubles it. Wow.
Yeah, a massive increase. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Constantly cutting sleep. It's like unknowingly playing with fire with your long-term health.
Totally. And the Alzheimer's link, he presents that as a key lifestyle factor, right up there with diet and exercise. That's pretty scary.
It is. The book really details how not getting enough sleep can actively contribute to developing Alzheimer's disease. And the impact on our metabolism is just as stark. Even just 1 week of moderate sleep production, maybe getting 6 hours instead of 8, that can push your blood sugar levels into a pre-diabetic state.
Pre-diabetic in 1 week.
Yeah.
Suddenly those late night scrolling or binge watching seem a lot less appealing, don't they?
They really do. And it doesn't stop there, of course. Our cardiovascular health takes a major hit too.
Right. How so?
Well, sleep deprivation makes our coronary arteries more likely to get blocked, to become brittle, which significantly bumps up the risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, congestive heart failure. It's a direct attack on the heart.
And it's not purely physical, is it? The mental side is huge, too.
And it's absolutely undeniable. Things like depression, anxiety, even suicidality, they're all strongly linked to insufficient sleep.
It's like our emotional resilience just gets completely worn down.
That's a great way to put it. Sleep isn't just physical rest. It's crucial for regulating emotions, for psychological stability. And, we can't forget appetite and weight.
Ah, yes, the classic late-night munchies.
Exactly. But it's not just willpower failing. When we're tired, our hunger hormones actually surge, and the hormones that signal fullness, they get suppressed.
So our body is literally pushing us to eat more. Okay, that makes sense. And it even messes with trying to lose weight.
It does. The book explains that if you're dieting but sleep-deprived, you tend to lose more lean body mass muscle instead of fat.
Oof. So it basically sabotages your efforts.
Pretty much. And then there's maybe the most blunt consequence of all.
The less you sleep, the shorter your life. Simple as that.
Yeah. That old saying, I'll sleep when I'm dead, suddenly sounds pretty ironic.
And incredibly risky.
Walker really emphasizes that shortchanging sleep is like this uniquely human behavior, and it comes at a huge cost. It's so bad that the World Health Organization actually declared a sleep loss epidemic in industrialized nations.
An epidemic? Wow, that phrasing really puts it into perspective.
It does, and you see it linked to falling sleep times in places like the U.S., the U.K., Japan, South Korea, Western Europe, and alongside that, rising rates of all these physical and mental health problems we've been talking about.
It's led some scientists to suggest doctors should actually start prescribing sleep, right? Like treating it as fundamental medical advice.
Exactly. It just highlights how profoundly important it is.
But, and this is key, it's not about just popping sleeping pills. The book draws a very clear line there.
A very clear line. Walker warns against relying on them because they come with their own set of potential negative health effects. The goal is natural, restorative sleep.
Which leads to a pretty stark question. Can a lack of sleep actually kill you?
It sounds extreme, I know, but the book argues yes in at least a couple of very real ways.
Okay, what are they?
Well, first, there's an incredibly rare genetic disorder, fatal familial insomnia. Basically, people with this condition progressively lose the ability to sleep at all.
At all.
Yeah, and within about 12 to 18 months, their brain and body functions break down completely. It's tragically fatal. Now, it's extremely rare, but it proves definitively that a total absence of sleep is lethal for humans.
Yeah, truly chilling. Okay, what's the second way, which you mentioned is more common?
Sadly, yes. Much more common. Drowsy driving. The numbers are just staggering. Hundreds of thousands of traffic accidents, many fatal, every single year are caused by fatigue. In the U.S. alone, the estimate is something like 1 death every hour from a fatigue-related crash.
Every single hour. Someone dies because they or someone else was too tired to drive safely.
It's horrifying. And the audiobook points out that drowsy driving is responsible for more accidents than alcohol and drugs combined.
Okay, that really reframes those times you drive when you feel just a little tired, doesn't it?
It absolutely should. Puts it in a terrifying new light.
And yet, for such a long time, science didn't really have a good answer for why we sleep.
It's bizarre, isn't it? We understood eating, drinking, reproduction, these basic drives.
Yeah.
But sleep. It was a genuine mystery, even to brilliant minds.
Yeah, the book mentions Nobel laureates, Freud, all kind of scratching their heads. The analogy used is like a doctor trying to explain why a baby sleeps without actually knowing the purpose. It just shows how big that knowledge gap was.
Exactly. And evolutionarily speaking, it looks like a massive mistake.
Right. You're vulnerable, you can't find food, you can't mate, you can't protect your young. It seems totally counterproductive to survival.
It really does, which led Dr. Alan Rechtschaffen to famously say that if sleep doesn't serve an absolutely vital function, it's the biggest mistake the evolutionary process has ever made.
That really captures the paradox, doesn't it?
It does. But the counterpoint is simple. Every single animal species ever studied sleeps in some form.
Every single one.
Yep. From simple worms to insects to fish to us. That universality tells you it must be fundamentally important, ancient, essential. The benefits have to outweigh those huge risks.
So the question, why do we sleep, wasn't going to have one single neat answer, no holy grail function.
Exactly. We've moved past that idea. Now we understand, as Walker puts it, that sleep serves a rich litany of functions. It's this incredible array of benefits impacting practically every system in the brain and body.
Like a biological Swiss Army knife. Okay, let's break some of those down. Brain benefits first. Learning, memory.
Crucial. Sleep consolidates memories, helps us learn new things, improves our problem solving and logical reasoning. It's when the brain processes and organizes everything from the day.
Makes sense. And not just the logical stuff, but our emotional health too.
Huge impact. Sleep helps recalibrate our emotional brain circuits. It makes us better equipped to handle stress and social interactions. Keeps us on a more even keel,
Yeah, definitely felt that difference after a bad night. And then there's dreaming.
Ah, yes. Still a lot of mystery there. But the book touches on some fascinating ideas, like how dreaming might help us process difficult emotional experiences.
Kind of like overnight therapy.
In a way, yeah. A unique neurochemical state to sort through things. And also how it might spark creativity, forming novel connections.
Okay, fascinating stuff for the brain. What about the body? Immune system is a big one, right?
Massive. Sleep is when the immune system kind of restocks and repairs. It helps fight off infections, even helps surveil for and destroy potentially malignant cells. It's like nightly security maintenance.
Wow. And metabolic health, regulating blood sugar.
Absolutely. Directly ties back to that prediabetes risk we talked about. Sleep is vital for maintaining insulin sensitivity and proper glucose control.
And appetite. You mentioned the hormones, but it also helps us make better food choices.
It seems so. Better sleep supports a healthier gut microbiome, too, which is increasingly linked to overall well-being and nutrition.
It's all connected, even blood pressure.
Yep. Adequate sleep helps keep blood pressure lower, so cardiovascular benefits there, too.
So when you stack it all up, diet and exercise are obviously key pillars of health, but Walker positions sleep as maybe the most important, the preeminent force.
That's the argument, yeah. He suggests the impairments from just one night of bad sleep can actually be more significant than skipping a meal or a workout.
That really puts it front and center.
It really underscores its foundational role.
It's like sleep as nature's ultimate multi-tool for health. Or as the book puts it, quite dramatically, Mother Nature's best effort yet at contra-death.
It's a powerful way to phrase it, highlighting its life-sustaining quality.
So given all this, all these critical functions, why do you think we as a society still seem to kind of brush sleep aside so often?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It seems like a massive disconnect between the scientific evidence and our cultural habits.
Definitely something to ponder. Okay, so We know why sleep is vital, but what actually controls when we feel tired and when we feel awake? The book boils it down to two main factors.
That's right, two core systems. First, you've got your internal 24-hour clock, the circadian rhythm, and second, there's a chemical pressure that builds up in your brain the longer you're awake, driven by a substance called adenosine.
Okay, so an internal clock and a sleep pressure chemical, and how they interact determines, well, everything about our sleepiness.
Pretty much. The balance between that circadian signal for alertness and the rising adenosine pressure dictates when you feel awake, when you feel tired, and the quality of your sleep.
Let's tackle the clock first. Circadian rhythm. Circa diem around a day. You said it's in almost all life.
Yeah, anything living longer than a few days has some form of it. And it's not just sleep-wake. It orchestrates rhythms in almost everything.
Like what?
Oh, mood, energy levels, preferred times for eating and drinking, core body temperature, metabolic rate, hormone release, even urine production.
Huh. The book mentioned using the urine production cycle as a quirky party fact.
It certainly makes for an unusual conversation starter. But seriously, this rhythm influences peak physical performance, like those afternoon Olympic records. And even the timing of births and deaths often shows a circadian pattern. It's deeply fundamental.
Incredible. And discovering this internal clock wasn't straightforward, was it? It started with a plant.
It did. Way back in 1729, a French scientist, de Marin, noticed his Mimosa pudica plant, the touch-me-not kind, opened its leaves in the day and closed them at night. But the cool part, it kept doing this even when he put it in constant darkness.
So it wasn't just reacting to sunlight. It had its own internal timer.
Exactly. That's what endogenous names generated from within. Like our heartbeat. It proved the clock wasn't just passive.
And proving humans had one took. Living in a cave.
Pretty much. Professor Nathaniel Kleitman and his student Bruce Richardson spent over a month in Mammoth Cave, Kentucky, completely cut off from sunlight in the 1930s.
Wow. Talk about dedication.
Absolutely. By tracking their cycles, they confirmed humans have an internal clock too. And crucially, they found our natural cycle isn't precisely 24 hours.
It's a bit longer, right? Like 24 hours and 15 minutes on average.
That's the average, yeah. So left to our own devices in a cave, we gradually drift later each day.
Which means we need something to reset it daily, to sync us up with the actual 24-hour rotation of the Earth.
Precisely. And the most powerful reset signal is light. Sunlight. It acts as the main Zeitgeber, that's German for time giver.
Does it have to be bright sunshine?
Nope. Even overcast daylight is usually strong enough, which is good news for many of us. It reliably anchors our internal clock.
But light isn't the only time cue, is it?
No. Other things can help nudge the clock. Timing of meals, exercise, even social interaction and temperature changes can act as weaker Zeitgebers. That's partly why some blind individuals can still maintain a roughly 24-hour rhythm.
Okay. And where in the brain is this master clock located?
It's a tiny cluster of neurons called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN.
SCN. Got it.
It sits right above the optic chiasm, where the optic nerves from your eyes cross. Perfect spot to directly sample the light information coming in.
So this tiny SCN conducts the whole 24-hour orchestra for the entire body.
That's a great analogy. It sends out signals to regulate all those rhythms we mentioned, including the drive for wakefulness and sleep.
And it's important to get the control direction right, isn't it? The clock controls sleep, not the other way around.
Exactly. Your SCN will keep cycling on its near 24-hour rhythm whether you actually sleep or not. Think about your body temperature. It dips predictably at night and rises during the day, even if you pull an all-nighter. The rhythm persists.
Right, so the potential for sleepiness waxes and wanes according to the clock, independent of actual sleep.
Precisely. Now, while everyone has this 24-hour clock, the timing of the peaks and troughs differs. And that gives us chronotypes.
Morning larks and night owls.
Exactly. About 40% of people are morning types larks. They wake easily, feel best early. About 30% are evening types owls, naturally preferring later nights and later mornings. The rest are somewhere in between.
And society often seems built for the larks, doesn't it? Early school starts, 9 to 5 work.
Yeah, it does create a real challenge for owls. They're often forced to wake up before their biology is ready, leading to chronic sleep deprivation. And sometimes they get unfairly labeled as lazy.
When really it's largely genetic, right? They're fighting their biology.
Very much so. Your chronotype is strongly influenced by genetics. And that forced desynchrony for owls is linked to higher risks of depression, anxiety, diabetes, cancer, heart attacks. all the things associated with insufficient sleep.
It's a serious public health issue, really. The societal bias against later types. You wonder if there was an evolutionary reason for having both larks and owls in a group.
There's a strong theory about that, yeah. It's called the sentinel hypothesis. Having individuals naturally alert at different times, some early, some late, would have meant the group as a whole was protected for more hours out of the 24. Better vigilance against predators.
That makes perfect evolutionary sense. Safety in staggered shifts. Okay, so the SCN sets the rhythm. How does it communicate nighttime to the rest of the body? That's where melatonin comes in.
Exactly. Melatonin is often dubbed the hormone of darkness, or the vampire hormone. As dusk falls and light levels decrease, the SCN signals the pineal gland, a small gland deep in the brain, to start releasing melatonin into the bloodstream.
So it's like the official announcement that nighttime has begun.
Precisely. Think of it like the starting official firing the gun for a race. It signals the timing for sleep onset.
But it doesn't actually make you sleep. It's not the runner itself.
That's a key distinction. Melatonin tells your brain and body it's nighttime and time to prepare for sleep, but it's not a potent sleep-generating chemical in itself, not like adenosine.
So for most people with a healthy sleep cycle, taking over-the-counter melatonin might not actually do much to make them fall asleep faster.
Generally, its effect as a sleep aid for typical insomnia is pretty weak. There's often a significant placebo effect involved.
And the quality of those supplements can be iffy, right? The book mentions tests finding huge variations in actual melatonin content compared to the label.
Yes, the regulation is poor. Some pills had wildly more, some vastly less, some none at all. It's a bit of a gamble.
Good to know. So melatonin rises in the evening, signals night, then what?
It stays elevated through the night, helping maintain sleep, and then starts to fall before dawn. Morning sunlight hitting our eyes then shuts off melatonin production quite abruptly, signaling the start of the day.
Which naturally leads us to what happens when we mess with that light signal and timing: jet lag.
Ah, yes, the bane of modern travel. You fly across time zones, but your internal SCN clock is still running on home time.
So your body thinks it's, say, 3 p.m. and time for peak alertness, but the clock on the wall in your new location says it's 11 p.m. and time for bed.
Exactly. That mismatch causes the grogginess, the difficulty sleeping at night, the wanting to nap during the day. Your internal clock is completely out of sync with the external world.
And it takes time to adjust. About 1 day per hour of time zone difference.
That's the general rule of thumb, yeah. So a 6-hour time difference can take almost a week to fully acclimatize to.
Which makes quick trips pretty brutal, and the book says flying east is usually harder.
Generally, yes. Think about it. Flying east means you need to advance your clock, go to bed earlier than your body wants to. Flying west, you need to delay your clock, stay up later, which aligns slightly better with our natural tendency towards a cycle longer than 24 hours.
Okay, that makes sense. And this isn't just inconvenient, it's physiologically stressful, right? The studies on flight crews.
Yeah, quite concerning. Chronic jet lag in flight attendants and pilots has been linked to things like shrinkage in memory-related brain areas, cognitive deficits, and even higher rates of cancer and type 2 diabetes. It shows the strain of constantly fighting your internal clock.
So this is where melatonin can be genuinely useful, taking it strategically.
Yes, this is one area where it has proven benefits. Taking a low dose of melatonin in the late afternoon or early evening of your destination time zone can help trick your SCN into thinking it's nighttime earlier, helping you shift your clock and fall asleep closer to the new local bedtime.
Okay, so it helps nudge the clock in the right direction for jet lag. Good tip. All right, that covers the circadian clock and melatonin. What about the other half of the equation, sleep pressure?
Right, sleep pressure. This is all about that chemical I mentioned earlier, adenosine.
Adenosine, what does it do?
It builds up in your brain continuously during every minute you're awake. The longer you stay awake, the higher the concentration of adenosine gets.
So it's like a sleepiness tracker. More awake time, more adenosine, more pressure to sleep.
Exactly. And it works by sort of dampening activity in the wake-promoting areas of your brain and increasing activity in sleep-promoting regions. It literally creates that feeling of mounting sleepiness.
Okay, makes sense. And this is where caffeine comes in and messes everything up.
Precisely. Caffeine is the arch nemesis of adenosine.
How does it work?
Caffeine molecules are structurally similar enough to adenosine that they can latch onto the adenosine receptors in your brain. But crucially, they don't activate the receptor like adenosine does. They just block it. They sit there, occupying the parking spot, so adenosine can't park and deliver its sleepy signal.
So caffeine doesn't actually reduce your sleepiness, it just masks it, like putting earmuffs on so you can't hear the sleep signal shouting at you.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It blocks the perception of sleepiness. The adenosine is still building up behind the scenes.
And the problem is, caffeine sticks around for a while. That half-life.
Yeah, typically 5 to 7 hours for the average adult, meaning half the caffeine from that 3 p.m. coffee is potentially still circulating in your brain at 8 p.m. or even 10 p.m.
Even if you don't feel wired anymore.
Absolutely. It can still significantly disrupt the depth and quality of your sleep later that night, even if you fall asleep okay.
And it's hiding everywhere. Not just coffee, tea, sodas, energy drinks, chocolate, some ice creams, even some pain relievers.
Right. And decaf doesn't mean caffeine-free. It usually just means less caffeine, maybe 15–30% of the original amount, which can still be enough to affect sensitive people.
So eventually the caffeine wears off, and then what?
Then you get the caffeine crash. The caffeine molecules detach from the receptors, and suddenly all that adenosine that's been building up floods in. You feel the full weight of your accumulated sleep pressure all at once.
Oh, that dreaded crash.
Yeah.
That explains it. And the book had that weird but memorable NASA study with spiders.
Yeah. They gave spiders caffeine, and, well, the webs they spun were completely erratic and disorganized compared to normal webs. A pretty vivid illustration of its disruptive effect, even on simple creatures.
And it's worth remembering, caffeine is an addictive psychoactive drug, one we routinely give to kids and teens.
That's a point Walker makes very strongly.
Okay, so we have the circadian rhythm cycling over 24 hours, and we have adenosine sleep pressure building up while we're awake. Are these two systems linked? Do they talk to each other?
Not directly, no. They operate independently, which is a really important concept. But normally, they are aligned.
How does that alignment work?
Well, think about your typical day. Your circadian rhythm starts sending out a strong wake-up signal even before you actually wake up. That signal generally gets stronger through the morning and peaks sometime in the early afternoon. Meanwhile, adenosine starts at 0 when you wake up and steadily climbs throughout the day.
So in the morning, you have a strong circadian wake signal and very low adenosine pressure. Result, you feel wide awake.
Exactly. Then as the day goes on, the circadian wake drive starts to decline in the late afternoon and evening, while the adenosine pressure continues to rise steadily.
So the gap between the falling wake drive and the rising sleep pressure gets smaller and smaller.
Right. Until eventually, in the late evening, the adenosine pressure significantly outweighs the weakening circadian wake signal, and you feel that irresistible urge to sleep.
And then during sleep?
During sleep, the brain gets busy clearing out all that accumulated adenosine. It's like a nightly cleanup crew. So sleep pressure drops dramatically overnight.
And by morning, the adenosine is low again, just as the circadian wake drive starts ramping up for the new day.
Precisely. Low sleep pressure plus a rising wake signal equals natural, refreshed waking. Usually.
Okay, that dance between the two systems makes sense. But what happens when you disrupt it? Like pulling an all-nighter, how does that show they're independent?
An all-nighter is the perfect illustration. Adenosine doesn't get cleared because you're not sleeping. So it just keeps building and building, higher and higher.
So you should just feel progressively more exhausted. Right.
You'd think so, but it's not quite linear. Because even though adenosine is climbing relentlessly, your circadian rhythm keeps cycling underneath. So as morning approaches on your all-nighter, your circadian wake drive starts to rise again, just like it would normally.
So even though the adenosine pressure is sky high, the rising clock signal gives you that temporary boost, the second wind.
Exactly. That's the second wind phenomenon. Your internal clock is temporarily fighting back against the crushing sleep pressure. You might feel slightly more alert for a few hours in the morning or early afternoon.
But it doesn't last.
No way. Because the adenosine is still incredibly high, and eventually, as the circadian wake drive starts its natural afternoon decline again, the sleep pressure becomes absolutely overwhelming. That's when people crash hard.
It really demonstrates their separate forces. Okay, after absorbing all of this, the big question for everyone listening is probably, am I getting enough sleep? How can you tell?
The book offers 2 really simple but quite revealing self-assessment questions.
Okay, what are they?
First, if you didn't set an alarm clock, could you easily fall back asleep around 10 or 11 a.m.? If the answer is yes, Walker suggests you're probably not getting enough sleep or the quality isn't good enough, you're carrying sleep debt.
Okay, question 1, what's number 2?
Second, can you function optimally before noon without caffeine?
Ooh, tough one for many people.
Right. If you need caffeine to feel functional in the morning, it's a strong sign you're essentially self-medicating chronic sleep deprivation.
Those are powerful questions. And often the reason for failing those tests is just not giving ourselves enough time in bed, right? Not enough sleep opportunity.
Exactly. We might think 6 or 7 hours is fine, but most adults need 8, often closer to 9 hours in bed to get sufficient sleep. Anything less, consistently, builds up that sleep debt.
Leading to chronic fatigue and all those health issues we just...
Yeah, little things. Constantly needing an alarm to wake up, hitting snooze multiple times, finding yourself rereading sentences, forgetting what color the traffic light was just after you passed it. Those minor cognitive slips are often telltale signs.
Of course, persistent daytime sleepiness could also signal an actual sleep disorder, like insomnia or sleep apnea, often indicated by heavy snoring, the book mentions.
Absolutely. If you suspect something like that, it's really important to see a doctor and potentially get referred to a sleep specialist. And crucially, Walker advises against just reaching for sleeping pills as the first solution.
Right. He has a whole chapter dedicated to why those aren't the answer, which maybe we can touch on another time. There's also a questionnaire mentioned, SATED.
Yes, the SATED questionnaire is another tool, a more formal way to assess different aspects of sleep satisfaction. Satisfaction, alertness, timing, efficiency, and duration.
Okay. Well, this whole exploration of why we sleep has been incredibly eye-opening, I have to say.
It really shifts your perspective, doesn't it?
Definitely. The absolute core takeaway for me is that sleep isn't optional. It's not a luxury you can afford to cut back on without serious consequences. It's a fundamental, non-negotiable biological necessity.
Couldn't agree more. The sheer number of benefits sleep offers the brain and body, contrasted with the damage caused by deprivation. It's overwhelming evidence. A message that really needs to be heard louder, I think.
Which brings me back to that final thought. If the science is so clear, if sleep is so vital for basically everything, why does our modern culture still seem to treat it like it's expendable? Why do we wear sleep deprivation like a badge of honor sometimes?
That's the puzzle, isn't it? It's definitely something for all of us, especially you listening, to reflect on. How do your own habits stack up against what we've learned? And maybe what's one small change you could make tonight?